This is the Enjoyer Podcast. I'm your host, James Dixon. This week I did a public service for the Enjoyer community. I took one afternoon, because all it took was one afternoon, and I read Gretchen Whitmer's book, True Gretch. You could say I read Whitmer's book so you don't have to. Look, if you're one of the normal people who reads this podcast, you probably have other things to do. It's the job of a journalist to light the path ahead of your feet so you're not going out unawares. You're working hard, you're working jobs, you're running businesses, you're raising families. A guy like me has the time to look at a budget or to read a bad memoir. It's a good system if and when you trust the info that you're getting. Well, trust me on this. You're not missing much if you don't get True Gretch. This is the memoir that was meant to be bought, but not read. But that's not really what's happened. Unfortunately, the best laid plans often unravel. And the book that was supposed to launch Whitmer to the big table in Democratic politics has actually done just the opposite. The Midwesterner reports that the Whitmer memoir is not a New York Times bestseller. This was odd news in Michigan, where the Lansing media acts like Whitmer's Amen Corner. You could not hardly read the stories that come out of Lansing without thinking that every Democrat in America was waiting for Gretchen Whitmer to drop everything and decide to take leadership of the whole free world. So it's odd news in Michigan, but for Whitmer, it's terrible news. Usually, a political memoir like Whitmer's has X amount of books bought before it's even sold. The book is bought en masse by super PACs and used as gifts for donors or giveaways. If True Gretch eventually does reach bestseller status, that will be how it gets there. If you have enough political support to win 2 governor's races in a 10 million person state, if you have the ambitions for the national stage of politics, you should be pretty easily able to pack a warehouse with books that your friends buy and become a bestseller. Whitmer hasn't. The first thing you notice about True Gretch is its size. The book is notably slim at 159 pages. Margins between the lines are rather generous. On my Twitter X, you guys should follow me at DownI75. I posted a photo comparison of Whitmer's memoir and Reagan's from 1965, which was called Where is the Rest of Me? At first glance, the books are similarly slim, but when I opened them up, the differences became clear. I compared pages 104 and 105 on both books. It was clear that the Reagan memoir had a lot more heft. Both books are ghostwritten. Both books are meant to do the same thing. They're meant to propel the writer, the subject, onto the national stage. But it's not just size where Whitmer falls short of the Reagan standard. You ever have a 10-page paper that's due, but you only have 6 pages of material? What do? You space it out, you play margin games, and you pray that your professor has kind eyes. Whether at first glance or after a deep read, that's what True Gretch reads like. Why would someone publish such a twee and thin memoir when this is also supposed to be the book that launches them nationally? Because True Gretch was a race against the clock. Whitmer, you might have forgotten, is President Joe Biden's campaign co-chair. The first debate between Biden and Trump took place on June 27th. The Whitmer memoir was launched Freedom Week, the next week, the first week of July. What happened in the wake of that first debate? That's when the late replacement theory that Democrats should find someone younger and more capable than Joe Biden to run for president grew from a whisper to a shout, all in the course of one 90-minute debate. In those early days, no one benefited more from the Dump Biden campaign than did his co-chair, Gretchen Whitmer. But everything seemed to unravel with the story in Politico that Whitmer had called the Biden camp and said she didn't think they could win in Michigan. I don't think Whitmer believes that or would ever say that. I heap salt on that story because it was planted by a political rival to Whitmer. But look at what's happened since. It's clear that a call was made and that call didn't land well with the Biden camp. It's clear from the way that July is going that Whitmer is outside the Biden circle of trust. She's co-chair in name only. It's a nice line on a resume, but they won't be on her list of references. On Tuesday, Whitmer spent the day in California, which is not a battleground state. Whitmer was not campaigning or raising money for Biden. She was selling and signing her own book. Another comparison to the Reagan memoir, Reagan's launch to national politics was not his book. It was actually a speech he gave. The speech was called A Time for Choosing. It was given in late October 1964, 1 week before the election. On primetime TV, Reagan spoke for 30 minutes in defense of the Republican candidate, Barry Goldwater. A week later, Goldwater lost to Lyndon Johnson, badly and as expected. When JFK was alive, he had hoped to face Goldwater and thought that Republicans might pull a switcheroo. He thought there was no way they'd actually go into November 1964 with Goldwater. But in the course of that loss for the Republicans, a new star was born in Ronald Reagan. It's a lot like how the Democrats lost the 2004 election, but got Barack Obama out of it. Reagan's memoir was published in 1965, after the election. During the election, Reagan was an able surrogate. It was only after he served Goldwater that he talked about himself. Meanwhile, Whitmer is signing books in California by her lonesome, as California Governor Gavin Newsom was called to Michigan as a Biden surrogate. Near the end of his speech in 1964, Reagan said he never met a man as incapable of a dishonest or dishonorable act as Barry Goldwater. On a recent CNN appearance, Whitmer said it wouldn't hurt for Biden to submit to cognitive testing. They sure don't make surrogates like they used to. The thin form of Whitmer's memoir owes to the function of timing. This was a rush job because it had to be. At expense of publishing this thin a telling of her life, Whitmer chose to beat the clock, and then to go on a national fundraising and press run just as the calls to replace Biden on the ballot were the loudest. It's no surprise, then, that when Gretchen Whitmer threw her coming out party, nobody showed up. Democrats tell us the 2024 election is the most important election of our lifetimes. Well, Gretchen Whitmer has an odd way of showing it. Speaking against the Democratic candidate and in favor of herself is not what you'd expect from someone who believes that our democracy is at stake. If our democracy is on the line, that seems a bad time for a selfie. This is bad politics. It's bad optics. It's bad friendship on Whitmer's part. Whitmer fully intended for her rise to come simultaneous with Joe Biden's fall. That's gross. It's why the governor of California was in her state talking to voters, while Whitmer went to his to talk about herself. This is what life looks like outside the circle of trust. Just when Whitmer should be breaking onto the national stage, she's dancing on her own. Things are bad now for Whitmer, but they could soon get worse. If Biden loses in November, there's going to be a circular firing squad on the blue team. And if Biden loses Michigan, Whitmer's going to find herself in the middle of it. Even the most casual observer of politics must notice that it's a presidential year, Michigan's a battleground state, and the twice elected governor of Michigan hasn't really said much in favor of the president, who needs every single vote. Did I mention that Whitmer is Biden's campaign co-chair? Michigan's a battleground state, but Whitmer has traded her black boots for Rothy's flats. When every Democrat should be all hands on deck for Biden, Whitmer is signing books. But it's the shooting of Donald Trump on July 13th at a campaign rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, that's done the most to consign the Whitmer memoir to irrelevance. Whitmer's rise owes largely to Trump calling her that woman from Michigan and her spinning that into gold. Look, man, this was the pandemic. People were staying home. Tiger King became must-see TV. You think people weren't going to buy a That Woman from Michigan pillow? For years, Whitmer has pretended that that nickname, That Woman from Michigan, was some form of bullying. It was politically valuable to pretend that a snarky remark from the president led to a kidnapping plot months later, and her Amen corner and the Lansing media was happy to pretend right along with her. In the eyes of people who don't know any better, a narrative formed that Donald Trump must be dangerous and that woman from Michigan must be special. Whitmer did not turn down the political temperature before shots were fired. She went on national TV with something behind her that said 8645, which means to get rid of the 45th president. The by any means necessary was silent. It always was. Until recently, with an election Democrats apparently don't think they can win or steal. That realization is why the American Hitler talk is ramped up. And that's when the shots were fired. And so now we know the reason we've been posed this hypothetical for so long. Would you kill baby Hitler? It's because if enough people say yes, all you have to do is convince the public that that person is baby Hitler. And who better to pin that on than your political opposition? than the people denying you the power and prestige you want. At this late date, you're grown, you realize that the case against Donald Trump was manufactured from whole cloth. You realize now that the 4 years of red breaking news banners, reading every tweet on air, the 100% fake Russiagate investigation, the multiple prosecutions Donald Trump is still facing, those are all done with the same goal as that assassin's bullet: to remove Donald Trump from politics by any means necessary. And now you see that the case for Gretchen Whitmer was made from that same whole cloth. Remove the supposed kidnapping plot from history, and what's the case for Gretchen Whitmer, future president? There is no case. The Trump assassination makes the Whitmer kidnapping plot look meager in comparison. In the book, Whitmer says that she was told by her head of security that she was safe and her family was safe. She admits that she never felt unsafe. When Whitmer told her daughters about the plot, she quickly added, "But it's never going to happen, so don't worry." Gretchen Whitmer, as victim of a murderous kidnapping plot, is a creation of the FBI. The media repeated it largely without question. Sheep are pretty good about bleeding things. But pull a thread, any thread, and the whole narrative unravels. And if the Trump shooting makes us view that man differently, the Whitmer book should make us look at her differently. If Whitmer thinks this thin volume is her launch onto the national stage, it must still be amateur hour on Team Whitmer. This book needed more time and care. But more time would have denied Whitmer the timing she wanted. And it's that timing that Democrats will hold against her in 2028 and beyond. In 159 pages, we really do meet the true Gretch. This is the woman who claims she ordered lockdowns due to high COVID death rates among black people, who puts the word freedom in scare quotes when she's talking about your ability to earn a livelihood, who then marched in Detroit with Black Lives Matter protesters, not because the black death rate had magically lowered, but because there was political advantage to be had. True Gretch is the campaign co-chair who makes a spectacle of herself during campaign season. True Gretch is the person whose every slogan, "Fix the damn roads," or "Fight like hell," or the new one, "Get shit done," has to contain a swear word. True Gretch doesn't know what's in the budget she signs, and she doesn't care who her words affect. She does what she wants, when she wants, and she vilifies anyone who doesn't go along. That's the true Gretch. Too thirsty for power, too clever by half. The timing that was supposed to be her unfair advantage has now turned into her great detriment. Whitmer 2024 is gone. Whitmer 2028 is going the way of the dodo bird. Judging by Whitmer's brief national nightmare, I believe our governor has already reached her political ceiling. Our guest today is one of the people I respect most in Michigan. He's someone I consider a friend. He's Justin Barclay, host of the Justin Barclay Show. Justin is an extremely accomplished radio host. He's filled in for Glenn Beck. I mean, if you listen to this, you surely know who Justin Barclay is. Justin, you've had me on your show so many times. Thank you for coming on the Enjoyer podcast.
I love it. It's just like turning the tables here. And likewise, man, I consider you a friend. James, you're a great guy, and I love what you're doing. I can't wait to see where you go with this. It's a really, really a cool opportunity.
Absolutely. We'll start you with an easy one. What do you enjoy about Michigan?
I love Michigan. So in radio, you got to move. If you want to climb the ladder, that was kind of what I wanted to do with my career. And you're always looking at the next best gig and where you're going to go. And you got to go like that TV show, WKRP. Remember the theme song, moving town to town, up and down the dial? That's kind of like you have to right. do that to get to where you want to go. So I had come actually from Tampa. And in the wintertime, I kind of think to myself, was that a good idea or not? I don't know. But no, I love it here. I love wintertime. I love summer. It's like paradise. But essentially what I love most about it is I met my wife here. So I came here back in like 2006 and to Grand Rapids. One of the first things I noticed when I came to Grand Rapids as I pulled up at the building where I'm going to work downtown, and the guy that invited me up that I would work for eventually, we're going to go out to dinner and have a couple of, a good conversation and just talk about what's going to happen. Get out of my car. It's like Disney World clean.
Right.
Like the streets are just, it's beautiful downtown. And Grand Rapids is like that. But there are a lot of Michigan cities that are like that. But I just never see anything. I'd come from Tampa and Cincinnati and all these other places that I really enjoyed and loved and worked at, but I'd never seen anything quite like Grand Rapids. And then you add in the weather, and there's so much to do here. I love water. So you're like never, far from water at all, whether it's a lake or the lake, whichever lake that might be for you. It's incredible. And I will tell you this. I mean, there's Michigan and then there's West Michigan. And like, there's something about like West Michigan and just the way that people there are. And there's a kindness to them. But there's a big component of faith. It's a great place to raise a family. And I think most of Michigan is like that. There are pockets that probably, aren't as family friendly, but
Right.
Michigan as a whole is really a great place to raise a family. So, of course, I met my wife and we moved around. I moved to Detroit and West Michigan. And so I kind of hop all throughout the states. And I got people and family all over now. So we just love it. Up north, cross the bridge even. I mean, I don't care where you are. There's always something great to do here. And in the summertime, today we're going to go out. We're going to go to the cottage, go to the lake, enjoy some time with the family. And man, I don't know. There's just nothing better.
If you could weigh in, we have an ongoing controversy in the enjoyer community. Where does up north begin?
I think up north, and I've seen this. As a matter of fact, this is my personal way in here, but I think it's up north is a state of mind. It's not a geographical situation. Up north is anywhere that is north, essentially, of where you have to be on a daily basis. So when I lose a studio, I'm going up north, so to speak. And the place where I'm about ready to go is only about 30 minutes from where I am right now.
Right.
Now, is that true up north? Well, like it's geographically, it's north of here, but in my mind, I'm unplugging. So
it's the up north of your heart.
That's it. So that's what I think the true answer is. Up north.
I upset some people online. My answer is more geographic than sentimental. Is that when you're no longer in Metro Detroit, when I'm on I-75 and I'm leaving Oakland County and I'm in Genesee now, Flint is up north.
Sure.
Frankenmuth is up north. Like if they're on Wellwater, it's up north.
Yeah. Yeah, but there are parts of Flint that you would not consider to be, up north in your mind, as far as like I'm on a lake somewhere. I'm plugged in the middle of nowhere.
Not a getaway, huh?
No, not Flint. Not always. No, it's not my go-to. But the getaway for me is, like I said, it's more of a state of mind. And I'll tell you this, the other thing too is I love to drive. So even just getting, like you just said, get in the car, roll the windows down, the sunroof open, put some music on, you're up north, man. You're already there. You're on the road. I love it.
Absolutely. So I'd like to talk today about our governor's memoir, True Gretch. I was actually shocked when I saw the report today. You tweeted about it in the Midwesterner that Gretchen Whitmer's memoir that was supposed to launch her to the national stage of politics isn't even a New York Times bestseller at this point. What did you make of that?
First of all, can we just have a moment of silence for her? This is all that effort and all that work and all that media that she got free from, from going on the late night with Colbert and MSDNC. I think she lived there for a day, and even on the Breakfast Club,
Charlemagne the God. Oh yeah,
going on all these shows, and it doesn't seem like it moved the needle at all. But here's the truth: is 9 times out of 10 these books, and this, it's a way for the system to sort of like, I don't know, pay certain people off, or maybe a stepping stone or a ladder to the next thing. Maybe the test balloon of can she do it? Can she make it on the national level? And Charlie LaDuff has really questioned her chops when it comes to like her viability on a national level before. And I think what he says is really kind of interesting. She's largely working in Michigan with a media that's very friendly.
Yes.
They don't ever ask her a tough question. I mean, you
No.
go back a few years ago where everything was upside down. We're sort of trying to right the ship in some ways. I mean, we're kind of still upside down in some places too. But, if you go back to the craziness, the chaos of it all, where they would approve which reporters could ask questions, very similar to what's happening with Biden right now. Who could ask questions, who couldn't ask questions. And I'm not too sure that they didn't approve what those questions were going to be. And they didn't let people in the room at different points. So she's used to, this group of people that's very friendly, that's going to, give her sort of the benefit of the doubt.
And Justin, what would you expect the normal reaction to be if you tell me that you're going to cut off meaningful access to the Lansing media at the same time you're telling 10 million people to all stay home? What's the expected reaction of a journalist to that?
Well, I would hope and I would think that it would be obvious and, they would start to ask some real questions.
Right.
But that's not what happened.
That's not what happened.
In fact, they sort of circled the wagons. This is a tough time. We got to come together around her. And I know there were some leaks. There were some people that weren't happy about that, but they weren't vocal. And maybe that's a sign of the times too, of that industry, that so-called journalists that they care more about the access they have to people and the clicks and the count on Twitter, the followers and things like that, than they actually care about the truth. That's a shame. Cause I know that that's not what journalism is about. It's about getting to the truth. And, we've got more activists, unfortunately, involved in that pursuit, that effort. Then we do the actual people that are looking for the truth, no matter what. That's a very rare thing these days.
Even before Trump was shot, I would say that the late replacement theory was kind of on its last legs. It was going to kind of be this week, where if they could get Biden out, it might have happened this week. Now it can't be. And now there's kind of the timing doesn't work. What do you think ultimately happens? Does Biden make it to the November ballot?
Now, it's interesting. I just heard a guy, and I may still try and talk to him, who still thinks, he swears it's going to be Michelle Obama. Now, I don't know if he's changed his mind after what happened this weekend, but I think you're right. You and I, when we had our conversations, I just remember you basically saying, well, they can't, if they're going to move, they can't put anyone in other than Kamala because their whole, their theology, really.
It has to be Harris.
Their doctrine is all about identity and race.
Right. They have an active hierarchy.
So it can't be her unless this is interesting. Now, I don't know how you sell her on this, but if you somehow said that, look, we've got something better. We are going to make you a Supreme Court justice, and that's a lifetime. So maybe she would bite at that. Maybe if there was something better for her that they could give her, but I don't think if you're that close and you could become the first female president, I mean, that's,
it's funny because that's actually what FDR did to Frank Murphy. The governor of Michigan and the mayor of Detroit. Frank Murphy kind of created what would become FDR's New Deal. He did it several years earlier. And then by 1940, we view FDR as inevitable, but he had rivals throughout. And it looked like Frank Murphy could have been one of them, a proud Michigan man. And so what did FDR do? Supreme Court. Supreme Court takes you out of the game for life. And that's why I wonder if that would work for Kamala, because it doesn't make you above politics so much as outside of politics.
Well, the way they sell it to her is they could say, look at everything you could do. Look at everything you can accomplish. And I was just at the State of the Union, and it was really interesting. Biden walked the floor for like a half an hour afterwards. And when they get out, they don't let you leave the gallery until the president is in the beast and on the way home. That didn't happen this time. So Congressman Mulliner, who brought me, as his guest, had to come. He actually came and got me, and thankfully he did, because I had an early morning radio show the next day. So we scooted out of there. He pulled me out. We scooted out, and I was walking through the halls with him, and we bumped into some great folks. Really interesting and kind of a surreal moment, because all these people you know and see on TV and think about, you're like face to face with them. One of them was Manchin from West Virginia. Senator Manchin saw me and walking with John, and he goes, "Good to see you again." I thought, I've never met you before, but I must have reminded him of someone. I say, "Yeah, you too."
You got one of those faces.
Yeah, I guess. And we saw Mitch McConnell, who I thought was kind of interesting. A lot of these guys they're very old, and he's much thinner and much more frail looking. I thought the same of Biden, but someone else who I nearly took out. And I'm going to be honest with you, this would have been horrible, but they are trying to get everybody out at this point, and these people are being led around, some of them by handlers. And Justice Sotomayor was coming through the hallway when we got to the first floor. And I was too. And I'm just trying to keep up with Congressman Mueller. He's, making a beeline trying to get out. And I nearly came. There was one moment we're crossing a hall, and I nearly ran right smack dab into somebody. And it was Justice Sotomayor. And she's not doing well. And a lot of people don't talk about this, but like health-wise, there's somebody with her, like a nurse or somebody that goes with her everywhere she goes. So I almost took her out, and we could have had
You almost became very newsworthy.
Oh, that's not the news you want to be at. Trust me.
No.
On that. I like to talk about news. I don't want to be there.
No, you do not.
Seriously, they've been talking about for a while that they need to encourage her, that it's time that maybe she ought to step down, and Biden ought to be able to appoint someone right now, because if not,
right.
look what Trump might get another one. We can't let Trump get another. So
right.
They've got this kind of like you've got this opportunity, this window. I don't know. It's still the short term with how much time you have until the election. I don't know, but it's a possibility. To your point, bring it all back. I think this idea that Whitmer has a shot this year, or even in 28 now at this point, I think those odds are getting less and less every day.
Absolutely. Why do you think that?
She just doesn't have the chops. I watched her on these shows. She's got a lot of canned answers. She's okay under a friendly environment, but I do think there's something to the idea that most people right now, and I'll just say, let's say pre-Saturday, most people just want somebody or something different.
Right.
They wanted an alternative. And then I'm just talking about people that don't even pay attention to politics. They'll vote, but it's not really on their radar, particularly not right now in the summer months. They're doing other things and whatnot. But I think most of that is because they want all of the noise to stop. They want the chaos to stop. They want it to all go away. They really want to go back to before 2020 if they can. Financially, with the way that things are with the economy and everything else, and not have to worry about crime and all these other things. And if you could just give me a fresh face, it doesn't matter who it is, but a fresh face, maybe some hope and some optimism. And it's not either one of these guys who, that we've had previously. I think we could get a new start. I believe these people think. So if you had someone who didn't have doesn't even need a national footprint, I believe the machine would do all the rest. The media would do the heavy lifting. So I think there was an opportunity. There was a point where that was, I think, an option. But the further we get down this road,
oh yeah,
it's less and less. These are pipe dreams. And for folks like Whitmer or Gavin Newsom, even Gavin basically ought to hang it up and become a Republican, this guy said. I think it was Scott Adams, the Dilbert cartoon guy. He said, because your party's basically told you that you're never going to ascend any higher. The identity, DEI, all this stuff, identity politics, that is their religion in the Democrat Party, says you're gone as high as you can go. You're not ever going to be able to go any further than where you are. So they ought to become a Republican. I thought, well, that'll never happen either. But
I don't know if that's true, because I look at Biden, and Biden showed in 2020 that Democrats can fall in line when they need to. And who is the Democrat coalition most comfortable falling in line with ultimately? They'd say a black woman, but in reality, a white man. And because a white man can win, it's all about winning at this point. It's not about how you play the game. So I think if it came down to we have to save our democracy and this guy is the most electable, they would gladly do what they did in 2020. But in 2020, they thought Biden was the most winnable guy. They'd have to believe that too.
To your point, you know who I think is electable would be basically a nobody from the Democrat Party. And it would have to be somebody. I think Grissom Newsom is what I call him, the American Psycho, because he reminds me of Christian Bale in the movie American Psycho with the hair and everything. Like,
Right.
I just see Gavin is in that scene with the raincoat and the axe playing the Huey Lewis. That's what I see when I look at Gavin Newsom. But I'll tell you, there's a guy like there's a couple of Democrat governors that I think could have a shot. But to fit your point of what you're talking about, there is Governor Beshear from Kentucky, another COVID era governor who somehow got reelected. But if you look at him and his family and like that picture, like it's just very reasonable, sort of moderate type of, even though it's probably got some really extreme radical policies that he's in line with. There's another one, governor of Massachusetts. What's his name? Is it Moore?
Maryland.
That's right. So there's another one that possibly, and he looked good in the press conference the other day when the governors were coming out.
Right.
He's pretty sharp. There are folks that are like that kind of caliber who look good to the camera. People don't really know who they are. They don't have a lot of experience. There may be some skeletons in their closet, but that doesn't matter. I think those are your up and comers. Those are the ones that would have a better shot anyway. But boy, this book with Whitmer, the fact that she didn't get any push from all of that media, and they'll probably just say, James, you know how it is. There's just too much in the news cycle right now. Nobody cared it. And they'll blame it on Trump. I guarantee.
This was supposed to be her vehicle to break into a news cycle. It's highly unusual.
Now, let me see that.
For someone who's not a presidential candidate to be this visible, this is how thin it is, to be this visible during a campaign season and not talking about the candidate, talking about themselves. Yes. Yeah. Justin, we'll get you out here on this one. I'm going to be asking everybody this question through November. Normally, I'd say 4 years ago, but that was COVID. Are you better off? Is your state better off? Is your country better off than it was 5 years ago?
Mm-hmm. Personally, I am.
Right.
I will tell you, I think there's several reasons for that. I will say the state is not better. My country is certainly not better off as a whole. And those are the obvious reasons of what we've seen come really through in the last few years. These progressive policies, they're just out of touch, radical, extreme policies. Everything, it feels like we're in an upside down world. Like, okay, we're going to have, men in restrooms or locker rooms with women and my daughters. That's crazy. Like, I don't care how you feel about taxes and, or should we have more government programs or not? That's crazy. We're just talking about crazy town now. Things like that. Things like, hey, a presidential candidate can't be safe when they're out campaigning because we don't know if the Secret Service is, all on the job that day or not.
Right.
We have airplanes falling from the sky, and all this stuff comes from those wacky DEI policies that aren't merit based, and I think on the surface made people think that they were doing the right thing or doing something that was good. And yet, if you looked at the core of what they were doing, they took the focus off of the things that really mattered. Like, are we going to make sure that we have the best doctors operating on us, the best people building airplanes, the best in the military, the best guarding our candidates and our leaders? And we've seen the results. So now the country's not, the state certainly isn't. However, there's this part. I personally am. I'm not everybody. In 2020, when all of it was hitting the fan, I'm just going to tell you, I hope you don't mind. I talk a little bit about my faith, but in 2020, when everything was hitting the fan, I was spending a lot of time out walking and just trying to be healthy. And I would have, just these like conversations with God while I was out walking. I think at one point I just sort of asked, like, what's going to happen is she going to open things up, or this going to happen? I'm just asking all these questions. And at one point, I just got the answer. And I'm not saying like I heard the booming voice of God or whatever, but the answer eventually came in and to some of these questions about how things would work out. And that was accurate. And another thing that I just really heard in that season was, I'm going to bring you out better off than ever before. So don't worry. I believe we have the opportunity to make our own economy, personally. And I know that's not going to be necessarily a popular idea, but a lot of that goes back. I'm going to send you one. Okay. Since we're talking about books today, I wrote a book called Good News, Hope, and Encouragement for Trying Times. And I wrote it in that season.
Very cool.
It's even thinner.
Is it?
I didn't go on a.
I'm gonna do the side by side when I get it. So
it's even thinner, but it came from people asking me questions during this time about, what do you think's going to happen? And I would tell them the same thing every time: is I don't know. I don't know the answer to this question. All I know is God is still on the throne. And as long as I keep my focus on that, I can have peace. So we have a little daughter, our first, that was born 27 weeks. She was 3 months early. And we spent just an incredible amount of time, 77 days, from the day my wife's water broke to the day we brought her home. We spent, we in the middle of the night one day, she woke me up and said, I think something's wrong. And that started this chain of events that led through all of this. And we ended up in one of the best places we could, Helen DeVos Children's Hospital in West Michigan. And between the doctors and the nurses, the caring staff, and I believe really God's hand on us through that entire process, we felt at peace. She's perfectly fine. And by the way, today she's perfect. She's now she'll be 4 in December. She was born 2 pounds, 6 ounces, and we felt a peace through it all. So part of that peace, I wanted to see if I could help give it to other people. And I write in the book about what I experienced, what I went through, and what I felt. And so what I'm telling you when I say about this is the world, we're in a very, very tumultuous place right now. But I don't believe we have to be. And I think that the key to it all really starts with me and the foundation of my faith. But I think it starts personally in your decisions about how you're going to show up in the world and what's going to happen. Now, who knows? Everything could change tomorrow.
Right.
But for me, I know we're supposed to be talking about Big Gretch, but I'm focused on something much higher than the politics of the day. And I think also that gives me the ability to look at all the stuff that I have to look at on a daily basis, because no matter what the headlines say, I know the good news.
Right.
And that's what keeps me going.
Amen. Justin, thank you. Thank you for taking your time. Thank you for doing the work you do. You are indispensable to anyone on the right. You're a voice, and you also have given your platform to others so they can get their voice and their messages out there. You're a friend to everyone you come across, and I appreciate you.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you too. God bless.
God bless.